which torment the victim of delirium tremens are examples of submundane beings, visible only to those whose evil practices are the magnet for their attraction. Differing widely from the elementals and also the incubus and succubus is the vampire, which is defined by Paracelsus as the astral body of a person either living or dead, usually the latter state. The vampire seeks to prolong existence upon the physical plane by robbing the living of their vital energies and misappropriating such energies to its own ends. In his De Entitate Spirituale, Paracelsus writes thus of these malignant beings: a healthy and pure person cannot become obsessed by them, because such larvae can only act upon men if the latter make room for them in their minds. A healthy mind is a castle that cannot be invaded without the will of its master. But if they are allowed to enter, they excite the passions of men and women, they create cravings in them, they produce bad thoughts which act injuriously upon the brain. They sharpen the animal intellect and suffocate the moral sense. Evil spirits obsess only those human beings in whom the animal nature is predominating. Minds that are illuminated by the Spirit of Truth cannot be possessed. Only those who are habitually guided by their own lower impulses may become subjected to their influences. See Paracelsus, by Franz Hartmann. A strange concept, and one somewhat at variance with the conventional, is that evolved by the Count de Gabalis concerning the Immaculate Conception, namely, that it represents the union of a human being with an elemental. Among the offspring of such unions he lists Hercules, Achilles, Aes, Theseus, Melchizedek, the divine Plato, Apollonius of Tyana, and Merlin the magician. Insert a sylph. From sketch by Howard Wiki. The sylphs were changeable entities, passing to and fro with the rapidity of lightning. They work through the gases and ethers of the earth and are kindly disposed toward human beings. They are nearly always represented as winged, sometimes as tiny cherubs and at other times as delicate fairies. Continued. Hermetic pharmacology, chemistry, and therapeutics. The art of healing was originally one of the secret sciences of the priestcraft, and the mystery of its source is obscured by the same veil which hides the genesis of religious belief. All higher forms of knowledge were originally in the possession of the sacerdotal castes. The temple was the cradle of civilization. The priests, exercising their divine prerogative, made the laws and enforced them, appointed the rulers and controlled them, ministered to the needs of the living, and guided the destinies of the dead. All branches of learning were monopolized by the priesthood, who admitted into their ranks only those intellectually and morally qualified to perpetuate their arcanum. The following quotation from Plato's Statesman is apropos of the subject. In Egypt, the king himself is not allowed to reign, unless he have priestly powers. And if he should be one of another class, and have obtained the throne by violence, he must get enrolled in the priestcraft. Candidates aspiring to membership in the religious orders underwent severe tests to prove their worthiness. These ordeals were called initiations. Those who passed them successfully were welcomed as brothers by the priests and were instructed in the secret teachings. Among the ancients, philosophy, science, and religion were never considered as separate units. Each was regarded as an integral part of the whole. Philosophy was scientific and religious. Science was philosophic and religious. Religion was philosophic and scientific. Perfect wisdom was considered unattainable save as the result of harmonizing all three of these expressions of mental and moral activity. While modern physicians accredit Hippocrates with being the father of medicine, the ancient Therapeut ascribed to the immortal Hermes the distinction of being the founder of the art of healing. Clemens Alexandrinus, in describing the books purported to be from the stylus of Hermes, divided the sacred writings into 6 general classifications, one of which, the Pastophorus, was devoted to the science of medicine. The Smaragdine, or emerald tablet found in the valley of Ebron and generally accredited to Hermes, is in reality a chemical formula of a high and secret order. Hippocrates, the famous Greek physician, during the 5th century before Christ, dissociated the healing art from the other sciences of the temple and thereby established a precedent for separateness. One of the consequences is the present widespread crass scientific materialism. The ancients realized the interdependence of the sciences. The moderns do not. And as a result, incomplete systems of learning are attempting to maintain isolated individualism. The obstacles which confront present-day scientific research are largely the result of prejudicial limitations imposed by those who are unwilling to accept that which transcends the concrete perceptions of the five primary human senses. The Paracelsian system of medical philosophy. During the Middle Ages, the long-ignored axioms and formulae of Hermetic wisdom are assembled once more, and chronicled, and systematic attempts were made to test their accuracy. To Theophrastus of Hohenheim, who called himself Paracelsus, a name meaning greater than Celsus, the world is indebted for much of the knowledge it now possesses of the ancient systems of medicine. Paracelsus devoted his entire life to the study and exposition of Hermetic philosophy. Every notion and theory was grist to his mill, and, while members of the medical fraternity belittle his memory now as they opposed his system then, the occult world knows that he will yet be recognized as the greatest physician of all times. While the heterodox and exotic temperament of Paracelsus has been held against him by his enemies, and his wanderlust has been called vagabondage, he was one of the few minds who intelligently sought to reconcile the art of healing with the philosophic and religious systems of paganism and Christianity. In defending his right to seek knowledge in all parts of the earth, and among all classes of society, Paracelsus wrote, "Therefore I consider that it is for me a matter of praise, not of blame, that I have hitherto and worthily pursued my wanderings. For this will I bear witness respecting nature: he who will investigate her ways must travel her books with his feet. That which is written is investigated through its letters, but nature from land to land is often a land, so often a leaf. Thus is the codex of nature, thus must its leaves be turned." Paracelsus, by John Maxon Stillman. Paracelsus was a great observationalist, and those who knew him best have called him the second Hermes and the Trismegistus of Switzerland. He travelled Europe from end to end, and may have penetrated eastern lands while running down superstitions and ferreting out supposedly lost doctrines. From the gypsies he learned much concerning the uses of simples, and apparently from the Arabians concerning the making of talismans and the influences of the heavenly bodies. Paracelsus felt that the healing of the sick was of far greater importance than the maintaining of an orthodox medical standing, so he sacrificed what might otherwise have been a dignified medical career, and at the cost of lifelong persecution bitterly attacked the therapeutic systems of his day. Uppermost in his mind was the hypothesis that everything in the universe is good for something, which accounts for his cutting fungus from tombstones and collecting dew on glass plates at midnight. He was a true explorer of nature's arcanum. Many authorities have held the opinion that he was the discoverer of mesmerism, and that Mesmer evolved the art as a result of studying the writings of this great Swiss physician. The utter contempt which Paracelsus felt for the narrow systems of medicine in vogue during his lifetime, and his conviction of their inadequacy, are best expressed in his own quaint way. But the number of diseases that originate from some unknown causes is far greater than those that come from mechanical causes, and for such diseases our physicians know no cure, because not knowing such causes they cannot remove them. All they can prudently do is to observe the patient and make their guesses about his condition. And the patient may rest satisfied if the medicines administered to him do no serious harm, and do not prevent his recovery. The best of our popular physicians are the ones that do least harm. But, unfortunately, some poison their patients with mercury, others purge them or bleed them to death. There are some who have learned so much that their learning has driven out all their common sense, and there are others who care a great deal more for their own profit than for the health of their patients. A disease does not change its state to accommodate itself to the knowledge of the physician, but the physician should understand the causes of the disease. A physician should be a servant of nature, and not her enemy. He should be able to guide and direct her in her struggle for life, and not throw, by his unreasonable interference, fresh obstacles in the way of recovery. From the Paragranum, translated by Franz Hartmann. The belief that nearly all diseases have their origin in the invisible nature of man. The astrum is a fundamental precept of Hermetic medicine, for while Hermetists in no way disregarded the physical body, they believed that man's material constitution was an emanation from, or an objectification of, his invisible spiritual principles. A brief, but it is believed fairly comprehensive, resume of the Hermetic principles of Paracelsus follows. There is one vital substance in nature upon which all things subsist. It is called our chess, or vital life force, and is